Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to another video. So in the last video we discussed about tabs till formulas, and in today's video we will discuss, or probably I can say we can take a quick look at the data, review, view and help tabs. Alright, so let's get started. So once you go to the data tab, you will notice that there are multiple sections which have everything to do with fetching your data, importing your data, transforming it, and working with separate aspects of data, right? So on the left you will see there is a get data option. If you click on it, again this basically helps you import data from multiple sources. For example, you can get data which is already available in your system from a Excel file, or from a text or CSV file, from an XML file, JSON, PDF, or a folder in your system. Okay. You can also fetch data from a database like an SQL Server database or Microsoft Access database or any other database for that matter, from Azure Data Explorer or from other sources like a table somewhere, or there are a number of options here which I'll explain it later on in specific videos. Okay. Then you have query combination here. We will talk about this. Then you have options like quick options like importing data from text, from a table or a range of values, or you can also see the recent sources that were used or any existing connection within your workbook. So if you have already imported data from somewhere and you want to check whether there is an external data within your Excel workbook, you can check it here. Okay. All right. The next option is queries and connections. So any query that is already here, like let's say an SQL query, or any other query that you have ran within the workbook, that all that can be fetched from here. So if you click on queries and connections, it will basically come to this tab where you have two options, queries and connections. So currently we don't have any queries or any connections within our workbook. That's why there is 0 connections and 0 queries here. All right. Third is the sort and filter. Again, very similar to what you saw earlier. If you have data available on your table and you want to sort it, let's say you want to sort from lowest to highest, or A to Z, or Z to A, highest to lowest, you can do it directly from this particular section of your data tab. And there are some advanced options also. You can filter the list using a range or particular criteria. So all this is available here. Third option is your the fourth section, that is data tools. This is pretty exciting, right? So there is something called as text to columns. So sometimes what happens is you will have a text available. So let me just give you an example. Let's say your text is first, second, third. Okay. So this is your text in a particular cell. Now what you want to do is you don't want this in a single cell, okay, and you want it to be distributed among different columns. So let's say I want first in column A, second in column B, and third in column C. So how do you do that? So this comes in pretty handy. You click on it and it asks you for a whether it's a comma separated value, or are the field aligns in columns with spaces. Okay, so I'll select it's a value with commas, or a delimiter as we call it. So I select this, I click on next, and at the bottom if you see there's a data preview, so it will tell you exactly how it's going to look, right? So instead of tab I'll select comma, right, because our values are separated by comma. Now you see this is how the preview will look like. I'll click on next again, and I don't need any formatting or anything. I'll click on finish. There you go. So your data has now been converted to columns. So that's why it's actually aptly named text to columns. Okay. So that's how you can use it. Let me just remove it and move on to the next. All right. So then next you have flash fill. So flash fill is usually used, to automatically fill in values. For example, let me just show you a quick example here, right? So let's say I have entered values like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. Okay. So this is already an entered set of value. Now I'm entering 1 and 2. And based on what I have entered, let's see if flash fill works or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these two and I'm click on flash fill. And it says we looked at all the data and didn't see a pattern. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to select the blank cells here and let me see. It says the same. Now let me try selecting all the cells and click on flash fill. There you go. So basically whenever you want to do a flash fill, depending on an already existing column, so in this case it was column A, these were the set of values and we only entered the first two values, right, 1 and 2. Assume it's a very large and complex column or a table where the values are not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but rather values in text or values that are used within formulas and so on. Okay, so in that case this comes in handy. So you just need to select your entire range which you want to do a flash fill on and just click on flash fill, and it updates for you based on the existing pattern on the left or the right. All right. Okay. Next is the remove duplicates option. In case in a set of values you have duplicate values. Let's say this is your this is your table or this is your column. You click on remove duplicates, gives you a quick pop-up. Okay, yes, column A is what we want. I click on OK, and then you will get a message saying 2 duplicates values were found and now 6 unique values remain. Okay, and as you can see, 4 which we had entered 3 times is now removed and only kept once. So that's pretty handy. Next is the data validation. So whenever you're working with large sets of data or any set of data for that example, you can circle invalid data and use multiple settings and options here which will highlight whenever there is an error in the validation. Next is the consolidate option. Lets you summarize data from separate ranges. Manage data model, we'll talk about it in detail when we move on to Power Pivot in our upcoming videos. Then you also have options to forecast. You can do a what if analysis, and you can also group, ungroup and do subtotals. Whenever you're working with, let's say, financial data, you want to subtotal at separate intervals, you can do that using this outline section of the data tab. Moving on to review. So review is primarily reviewing your workbook, right, for any proofreading that you want to do or any accessibility issues and so on. So under proofing you will find spelling. You can use this to make changes to any typos within your cell, any spelling errors that you want to change before you send it out to someone. Then you have thesaurus option. Here what you can do is, in case you are at the loss of words, let's say, and you want to find a synonym or a identical meaning to a word, you can use it here. So let's say I'm using the word Excel and I want to know what another word can be used instead of Excel. So I type Excel, click on enter. So these are the synonyms, right? So you excel at something, or you shine at something, or you outshine at something. So things like that, right? All the synonyms will pop up here when you use this option. Next is the workbook statistics. So if you click on it, it just gives you a quick look at what all is used within this workbook. So you will see end of sheet. So end of sheet is A6. That's because cell A6 is where the last value is entered within this particular workbook, right? So table 0, we don't have any tables, we don't have any formula 0, and there are 6 cells with data 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we have one sheet in this workbook, and again cells with data 6, no tables and no formulas. So that's just a statistics for you. Accessibility. So in case somebody who's disabled wants to use your workbook, that's when we use this option. So it's always recommended that you create your workbook in a manner that can be accessed by everyone, irrespective of their disability. All right. Then there is a smart lookup. You can look up for anything using a smart lookup, whether it's media, whether it's a media file, or any subtopic as well. So I type in hello, and I get a quick result, scrolling down. Then you have media results for hello and so much and so on, right? You have a translate option in case you are working with multiple languages. You can add comments. You can see all those comments. You click on comment and then you can just start typing here. All right. You also have an option to protect your sheet. You can protect, certain cells, certain columns. In case you don't want somebody else to edit something that you have shared with them, you can use these options proactively before sharing your worksheets. There is something called as hide ink. Hide ink is primarily used when you are using a pen. In case you want to highlight something within the worksheet, you can hide that particular highlighted section. For that, we use a pen section, which I'll talk about in detail when I do a separate video for hiding. All right. Next is your view tab. View tab is used to change the way the workbook looks, or certain aspects of the workbook look. So you have your workbook views here. Normal. If you want a page break view, you will get it like this. Page layout, you will get it like this. Custom views, you can change it. We'll go back to the normal view. And there is something called as grid lines. We talked about it in our earlier videos. So in case you don't want the grid lines, you can just hide it. Formula bar, headings, switch on, switch off. Yeah, you can do that. You can zoom your worksheet to whatever percentage you want. If you want 100% zoom, you can go back. I prefer to use a slightly higher zoom. So if you see, I'm using 145 now. And zoom to selection is basically if you only have, let's say, 6 rows, you're working on this, and you click on zoom to selection, your entire working window is zoomed up and shown on your screen. So we just want, let's say, somewhere around this. Yeah, 175 is fine for us. Then you have your new window. You click on the new window and a new window opens up, but with the same values. So this helps you work with the same set of values in multiple places, and you can arrange all those opened windows yourself. And then there's a freeze option. So it helps you freeze panes, right? So let's say I want to, I have multiple values here. All right. So let's say I have values till 165 rows. And what I want to do is when I scroll down, I want to see what the heading is. So the heading here is topic. For me to see it effectively, there is something called as freezing the panel, right? So I select this panel, that is the first row. I come to freeze panes and I say freeze top row. So let's see what happens now. I'm going to scroll down, and you can notice while I'm scrolling, my frozen row, that is row number 1, right? It stays intact. So this way, when you work with a worksheet, an Excel file which has multiple headers, multiple headings on top, and you are trying to compare, let's say, something on row 30. What usually happens is when you scroll down, your heading will not be visible. So you'll have to go back, see what the heading is, okay, then come back and try to make sense of it. So instead of that, you can just freeze it, and even if you scroll down to the very bottom, your heading will still be visible. All right, pretty cool. And there is something called a split. If you want to, let's say, split the view and divide the window into multiple sections and scroll individual sections separately, you can use the split option. Okay. In case you want, I'll just show you an example. So I'm selecting 2 sections here. Okay, I'm working with 2 different sections in this window. Click on split. So now you see the window is divided into multiple sections, and you can work with each section separately. Then hide. If you want to hide the workbook, you can do it and then unhide it. And you can switch multiple windows in case you have that open. Macros is something when you have repeated instructions to carry out, you can use macros. Okay. So macros is a wide topic, and it's a pretty interesting topic that we can discuss in our upcoming videos. Last but not the least, help section. In case you need any help or you want to contact the support team, or the community or Excel blogs you want to read, you can access this particular section. Okay. All right. So that's about it. We have covered the basics of what each of the tab does. Now in our upcoming videos, we'll dive deeper into some of the interesting sections and how you can actually manipulate the data, how you can actually work with the data in your Excel files. All right. So in the upcoming videos, it's gonna get a bit more exciting. I know it's been more of theory so far, but we'll try to do it very practically using the logic building as well as solving some of the problems that are there when you work with Excel files. So thanks a lot. In case you have any questions, please post it on the comments section. And in case you have not subscribed to the channel yet, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Thanks a lot again.